What does it take to be a successful entrepreneur? A dangerous amount of coffee and a ton of grit. My name is Jason Tracy, and every week I interview business leaders to share their stories, life lessons, failures, and advice with you. Welcome to Coffee and Grit. What is up? What is up? What is up? Welcome back to another episode of Coffee and Grit, and I've got the one, the only Terry Bean in the studio today, and I'm so super excited. So, little backstory. I was just sharing this with my wife, Gracie Tracy.
Gracie Tracy. I love that.
I was just sharing this story with Gracie yesterday. The Coffee and Grit history. So I've been doing this for 4 years, and I got to a point, it was really paying off from like a branding standpoint. I had people on that I got clients, and, just creating content is an easy way to create content and help put spotlight on other people. But I got to a point, I'm, doing this from my kitchen table at the collaborative workspace that I work from, and I'm editing all my content, and so doing it all by myself. And I got to this point where I had far too much content to even edit and to do with. And so I had probably like 10 episodes in the hopper, right? And it's like, in the background, it was just overwhelming. And I had people that kept reaching out and asking to be on the podcast. And I was telling people no. And I'm like, and I had come to a point in my mind, I was like, I'm just going to shut this down because I have far too much to do. And then one day, Terry Bean and me are having a conversation, and Terry's like, whatever the conversation goes, said he wants to be on the podcast. And I'm like, well, if Terry wants to be on, I can't quit now. Okay. So I'm like, okay, if I'm going to have Terry on and keep going. So it literally was the decision to keep going was having you on. And then the day that you're on, I ended up having a conversation with Rob here at the studio. We had a one-on-one just kind of talking, and I left here knowing that I was going to join the studio, and it was changing. And so I was on the way to interview you from a meeting, and I'm like, I just signed, and we're going to do the podcast in the studio here. And I'm like, man, maybe I should tell Terry to, we're going to push off a week, push off a couple weeks. And I didn't, because I'm like, we're just going to go through the interview. And so Terry was the last interview that I did before coming to the studio. And so we did Zoom.
Yeah.
And so I'm super excited to have you in the studio today, because we did a Zoom call and the content was just so cool. And then I joined this, and it was like the video quality and just the stuff like, man, if I would have had Terry in the studio, it would have been just so much better. But what's really cool is it got released in between, your episode got released in between the studio episodes. So I had one episode in the studio, and then your episode came out, because I'm still trying to edit it on my background, do it by myself. And then from then on, the studio content was out. But after a couple of months, this episode really caught fire on Spotify and in the podcast episodes, and so Terry's episode is the most listened to episode of all time, and I don't think you knew that, of Coffee and Grit.
Wow! From
the podcast standpoint, so from listening to it from the full podcast. So
that's because people can't see me on a podcast. Boy, do I look good in audio!
You look so phenomenal,
delightful. Yeah, I love that.
But that was just, we talked about so much. There's such powerful content, and so I'm so excited to have you in again. And it's been a couple years now, so
it's been a while. Yeah. So you had almost like a going out of business, fire sale, everything must go, take my Zoom, which is basically what that amounted to.
Yeah.
And then moved in here. That's so cool.
Yeah.
This space is great.
It's so phenomenal. And then, you have a guy like Johnny out here that's doing the work and the camera and the angles and making sure we look good and, all that good stuff.
Or Johnny needs overtime.
He needs overtime to make us look good, right?
Yeah.
But just to be able to show up, and I was saying a few minutes ago that I look forward to every Monday afternoon, because I just get to show up and have a conversation with an incredible human, and I don't have to worry about any of the other stuff.
That makes it so much easier. Yeah, because the podcasting, like the conversation, the interview, that's the sweet part, right? Everything else kind of starts to feel like work every now and again.
It does.
Scheduling's okay, right? Editing, garbage. Promoting and posting and cutting and sharing and commenting, that's fun for a minute, but it's like 300 minutes of that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, the rest of it. Yeah.
So what's fun is I do, it's always been about the little clips to me. And so I didn't even start out to do a podcast. It was about, I'm sitting down with incredible people having conversations. And in that, there's these little stories that people are telling. Stuff about their journey that maybe nobody knows, or they haven't heard that story. And if they did, they'd probably like them more. They'd probably know about them, or
Yeah.
put a spotlight on them. People
They dive in. No one's going to listen to an hour, but I got 62 seconds to listen to you.
Yeah, and that's the society we're in, right? And now it's even more catered to that than when I started 4 years ago, because now you have, TikTok came out, and then every social media platform wanted to be TikTok. So I started off making, I say short clips, but they were anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes. And now they're pared down to that 30 to 60-second window. But I enjoy doing that every week, because it's a new conversation every week, and it's being able to take and pick those incredible stories and find those 60 seconds and then put a spotlight on somebody. And then I get so super pumped when there's a lot of attention on it, or if someone's like, you need to connect me with that person. It's just, awesome. It fills my bucket, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
That's awesome. I posted about my podcast partner. I did a podcast, and I just learned sitting in the lobby here that I was wrong about the timeline, but I did a podcast from 2015 till really just last summer. So we recorded 196 episodes, and I came in to her show that she had already established. She was doing a social media hangout time. So she was talking about Facebook and Twitter and Instagram mostly. And her podcast co-host was a puppet named Kimmy. Yeah, so the lady that was doing the voice and the action of Kimmy decided to bail. I had called this lady like the week before, said, hey, I'm thinking about doing a show. I need some advice. She and I went to high school together. She's like, well, my partner just quit. Do you want to co-host? And I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll give it a rip. And we did that for like 8 years.
Wow.
So yeah, it was an interesting time. But now I'm like, I want to be on the other side. I want to sit and be the guest. I don't want to have to do. All right, I'll be honest. I didn't do any prep last time either, but I don't want to do any other. Right? I don't want to think about it. I just want to show up, add some value, have a fun conversation.
That's exactly it.
And then be like, I'll share it when it's done. Let me know.
Yes. Well, and there's so many podcasts out there. People are looking for guests. I saw you had a goal for how many podcasts you wanted to get on.
Sure.
But and I was coaching clients, and so I created this podcast in order to brand and create content. But when I'm working with different individual people, they're in the same boat as you. Like, I don't want to do something once a week, or, have a commitment to it. And then I got to do all this editing and all these things. But there's so many people you can go beyond their show, and you go create that content, and you get exposed to their network.
That's exactly it. I'm like, wait a second. I'm putting all these people over, right? What am I getting out of this?
Right.
Let me see what happens. It doesn't really matter what side of the mic you're on, by the way.
It really doesn't.
It doesn't matter.
It really doesn't.
No, you're not getting any more value being a guest than you are the host, and vice versa, which is still cool, though, because ultimately it's this, right? It's this one-on-one discussion where we're going to uncover a couple of things about each other, or about business, or about big ideas that we want to share. And, I'm here for it.
So cool. Man. So we were talking, beforehand, and talking about some, the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows of being an entrepreneur. And, I love that conversation, because it's the truth, right?
The truth.
You can be going and kicking ass and doing all the things, doing all the right things, and then it can be taken out. But then what do you do?
Just gone, right? I said it in my book. And my editor actually corrected me. I've said for a long time, life's nothing more than a series of pats in the back and kicks in the gonads. And she corrected it from nuts to gonads, because gonads is a multi-gender thing. We both have gonads, right?
Yep.
Male and female. So I didn't know that at the time. I learned something.
I just learned something right now.
Yeah. So there's a few of you. How many of you knew? Anyway, so and it really is, right? So what really matters isn't, did you get patted on the back? Did you get kicked? It's how do you deal with either one of them, right?
Yeah.
And for me, it's always the same answer. When COVID came out, I learned how to do Canva better. I know that I am a pretty good communicator, especially verbally.
Yep.
But visually was garbage, because I'm an auditory learner.
Yep.
I don't think in pictures. I don't react in pictures. I don't see in pictures. I think in sound. And so even though I know 70% of the population's a visual learner, I'm like, those visuals aren't that important. So I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to watch Tiger King. I'm going to learn how to do Canva and get better at this. But the mantra that I had was keep your head down, keep your chin up, and keep moving forward. And ultimately, it's the same thing. I was telling you before we hit record, right? I had a 6-week lull in business, right? That no matter what I did, no matter what I shared, no matter what I put out, no matter who I invited in the conversation, it was like
It's not going anywhere.
It was really bad, man. And then all of a sudden, like it does, you put enough stuff behind a floodgate,
Yeah.
and the gate breaks open. And so went from 6 weeks of holy crap to, the next few weeks are going to be a holy crap on the other end. But just keep moving forward, right? That's all we can do.
And the thing is, a lot of times we bail because it's like, oh, the stuff we're doing is not giving us any
producing
fruit, right?
fruit,
It's not producing
right.
fruit. But it's just like I always think of that. There's always a picture of somebody digging for diamonds, and then they stop and they turn around, and the wall is that thick before they actually hit that.
Yeah, you missed it by 3 inches, and that's the piece. And I'll tell you, I am tenacious, right? I am persistent. These are words that other people would use to describe me, and I would say, I agree with that one, And so, but I've also been like the master of the pivot, and I think back on the last 18 years or however long I've been doing this now. I wonder how many times I pivoted right then. Right before that, one more swing, one more smash with the hammer, and you would have broke through.
Yeah.
Oh no, you decided to turn and go this other way. So they talk about Henry Ford was exceedingly obstinate, right? He was very, very measured in his decision making. He would make decisions quick. He would change his mind slowly. Right. And it was because he knew exactly where true north was. And so when you're that crystal clear on something,
Yeah.
it either aligns to it and you're in, or it doesn't and you're out. And I love that from a how do we make decisions? How do we think about things perspective?
Well, I love it because you said it really ties in. You said going back to what works. And you have an idea, and we talked a lot about in that last episode, things that you do that works, like going back to that, because if you're going out there and you don't know what you're doing, you could be going in the wrong direction. And if you're chipping away, it doesn't matter how hard and fast you chip, you're chipping away, you're chipping into the wrong direction.
That's exactly it. And so, go back to what has been fruitful in the past. And it's interesting. We were joking about I don't have a mic in my studio set up, quote unquote, quote unquote, because my voice sounds like my voice. So this all messes me up when I hear it and all this big throatiness. But I forgot what the damn point was.
It's doing what works.
It's doing, so it's the voice. You know what I noticed I haven't been doing as much lately, and you're going to probably reach over and smack me doing some sales coaching? Picking up the damn phone, man. And dialing it. I pick it up all the time for Facebook or for text or for LinkedIn messages or to schedule something on a calendar or to send an email. But to actually call somebody and go voice to voice, man, I had 5 conversations in a day last week, and 4 of them turned into opportunities, right? And I wouldn't have gotten any of those opportunities had I just sent a text or an email.
What's the difference?
I think you can dial in deeper, right? I think it's a lot easier to blow people off via message than it is voice to voice.
Yep.
I think there's a sincerity. And so a phone call is going to last 10 minutes. You're not going to text anybody or email anyone for 10 minutes, right? And so that depth happens.
And the crazy thing is if you spend 10 minutes texting, you will not get even a fraction of what you get from 10 minutes of a phone call.
Right. And you'll both be annoyed.
You'll both be annoyed.
This was a phone call. Why are we still texting?
Exactly. One of my pet peeves is when I get a text message from somebody that's like, how do I do this thing? And it's like, that's not a text back, that's in depth, because I've got a lot of questions. Like there's, like, how do I overcome this objection? There's not a textbook of like, oh, you do this, this, and this. Like, it depends. What's your situation? What happened? Right. What was the last thing you talked about? What's the next step that you set? Like, I need to know some context here in order to do that through text it's going to annoy me, and I'm going to end up not responding to you.
It's going to annoy both of us, right?
Yeah.
We're going to be done with this conversation before it even starts. Yeah. Do you have a ruling on that? Like, if it's going to take this many texts, it's automatically a phone call?
Yeah. And I used to try to appease and, try to send a text back, and then I would just waste too much of my time. I'm like 30 minutes later trying to figure out how to phrase this thing in the text, and I'm kind of that audio. I can do this in 5 seconds, like explain or just ask a couple questions, then we can have some clarity. And so I'll call, and if they want it bad enough, they'll pick up the phone or call me back,
Right. Yeah, and but I'm done playing the game.
Yeah.
I remember it was like 2008, 2009. I was talking to somebody that must have been later than that. It must have been 2011 or 2012. Talking to somebody that installs docks for, and does home handy work, yard work stuff. And I said something about, well, just text me. And he said, well, texting is the single most ignorant pile of communications there's ever been. And I'm like, what? And he said, it's just ignorant. I don't text. And I'm like, can I offer you some coaching? I do a lot of coaching. Can I offer you some coaching? And he's like, yeah, sure. And I said, calling texting ignorant when it's one of the most efficient forms of communication doesn't, speak poorly on texting, right? Kind of slid that subtle little jab in there. It's not the texting that looks ignorant right now, homie. And I said, so I want you to think about that. And he said, I want you to think about what I said. And I said, okay, go ahead. He said, I used the word ignorant, the root word of which means to ignore. You think about all the things that texting ignores in terms of tone and tempo and passion and energy. And I was like, I rescind my previous statement, sir. You are 100% correct.
Yep.
So it was a fascinating lesson that came out like a dozen years ago, man. And I still text more than I talk, but I want to change that from time to time.
I love how you started this conversation, because I think I think we all fall into it. It's so easy to have communication and to get those pats in the back that you referred to at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
You post social media, and we're both posting every day and putting our content out there. And so it's easy to get the comments or the likes and the reactions and be like, I'm making it.
I'm doing things.
I'm doing things.
I'm busy.
And then you probably have people that are like, oh, I see all the things you're doing.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
They have no idea what's going on in the background. Yeah, exactly. Like, where's my like at?
You say you saw that. Really?
We do take notes.
And we're coming for you.
But like it can be, you feel like you're putting the work in, and so it can be so easy to then ignore that phone call, or feel like you don't have to do it. But it put that in your process, and you'll have so much more. Well, how I look at all these tools, we have such tools, right?
Great tools.
Like, use social media, use texting. There's a point to texting. You can schedule a quick meeting.
100%.
The salespeople I coach, and like, don't try to sell somebody over text or email, right?
There's no pitching.
There's no pitching.
It's not the pitch place.
But it's like, I can go and quickly set up a conversation with you. And that's how I use my text, is like, hey, let's get together one-on-one. Here's a link to my calendar. Let's, because I want to then be able to go deeper with you than just this texting that we do back and forth, or even a comment,
Absolutely.
But use those tools in order to, like, social media. How do you build credibility? How do you get on the map for people even know who you are?
That's right. Show up. Post some stuff. Add value, right? I'm watching. Do you know Brad Voorhees?
No.
Brad's an HR consultant. And I don't know whether or not we met years ago or he just showed up. But Brad's been on the I'm going to post every day on LinkedIn for two years, right?
Yeah.
His plan is to post every day for 2 years. And he just finished month 2 last week or so. And so it's been really fun because I met him live and in person about 6 weeks ago. It's been fun to watch his engagement pick up. It's been fun to watch the conversations pick up. And he's really focused as an HR professional, is sharing different ideas and thoughts about talent retention or how to build culture or how to make decisions regarding your talent and your people. And it's super value add. And every single day, it looks like he's getting more recognition. And 2 years, right? He didn't set up to say, I'm going to blow this thing up in 2 weeks or 2 months. He knows it's going to be a long process.
Yep.
And that's kind of what we have to do. We have to show up. We have to remain committed to showing up and keep showing up.
And then what is that next step when people do start engaging? Are you moving them into one-on-one conversations? Are you bring them into real life relationships?
Yeah. So I asked him that point blank. I'm like, so has this turned into anything yet? And he's like, no, but I didn't expect it to.
Yeah.
Right. I'm having some conversations that are offline.
Yeah.
Right. So those are starting at this point, but no, there's no business here. And I'm like, honestly, I post damn near every day and have for 10 years. And I've gotten some business through LinkedIn. But what I've really found is that LinkedIn's the spot that people are going to check you out and verify if you are who you say you are.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
So that's like, they might not even go to your website anymore. They might end up at your LinkedIn profile first.
Yep.
And so, okay, there's 17 years worth of content for you. You like any of it? Some of it's probably good, and so they know that you're as close to the real deal as you say you are, right?
It's creating your footprint because whether it's, the thing is they're Googling you, right?
Yeah.
And they're going to find your LinkedIn, they're going to find your Facebook, they're going to find your website, and they can take and do a little bit of a study. If they're, every meeting I go to, I check in on people and see, what it is they're doing and what they're working on. 'Cause I want to know a little bit about them before I come in.
Absolutely, right? Because it's great to find common ground. It's great place to start a conversation.
Absolutely.
And it's a great way to find out whether or not you might actually like them.
Exactly.
You ever fire a client?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Best day of that week, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. And it's so cool because whenever you fire a client, I feel like somebody comes in right after. It's like a good fit person.
That's right. It's the who pays more and who's going to be more enjoyable to work with. They just show up like the universe is like, oh, I'm glad you did that here. Here's a nice little reward for you. Way to go.
It really is like the universe has its way of telling you when you're doing the right or wrong things.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's keep score without really even keeping score. It's kind of cool.
It's really, really cool.
It is, man. Yeah. So I joke about that all the time, that firing the client moment, and it's so tough, right? Because can you imagine how much you must not want to be with somebody to say,
I don't need your money anymore.
I'm taking your dough, dude. The level of suck that they had to have achieved is so high. But if you got rid of them, it really was the best day of the week. Right? Because they were brutal, right? So I like that idea. And so for me, when I look at people on social media, and even when I put some content out there, I'm using those things to disqualify people as much as I am to qualify people.
Absolutely. I built, we talked about COVID a little bit ago, and how do you get out there? Everything's shut down. We talked about this in the last episode. You're doing Motor City Connect and people are meeting in person and all of a sudden,
gone.
Boom, all gone. And so I really poured into LinkedIn creating content. But it wasn't just, okay, now I'm creating content. And I looked at it. If people liked it, if the people commented, they're walking into my retail store. And so then I'd make it a point to connect with them, shoot them a message, or everybody I connected with, I started sending out this one particular question. And it was, what makes a connection great for you?
Ooh, I like that.
I told my wife it's a scientific hack, because people will see it for what it is, whatever they're thinking, right? If you say what makes a connection great for you, if they're there to sell to you, insert the next 2-paragraph phrase on how they can save my business because they're marketing or blah, 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 right?
100%.
So boom, those are in the trash. I separate those really quickly. The people that come back of like, I'm looking for, collaborations and just really looking to build relationships with authentic people that are looking to grow and have a growth mindset, or, the people like that's like, I want to know more about this person. Let's connect for a 30-minute, conversation. And it's like weeding those people out. Like these ones go in the trash. Oh, I want to know more about you. And then really that's even feeding into the podcast. It's like, oh, I want to know more about you. Let's have you on the podcast and have a conversation about it. And it was like taking a process of going deeper. And really quickly, I'd have these little relationships with people. And, now it went from being online to you take it into your hands and you create actual relationships. Because if you're just sitting back and just posting, you could do that for 2 years and not have any results.
Right. And it becomes relatively obvious to anybody that that's really what you're doing.
That's really what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
This is the part that irritates me is we talk to people all day and every day. All we hear about is how busy everybody is. And I'm not sure about this for everybody, but pretty sure about it for a good 60 to 80% of the population. If I were to go through your phone records and take a look at what you were actually busy doing, right? You'd probably say, no, you know what? Never mind. I wasn't busy. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that. I take that word back. I'm never going to say it again. Okay. Yep. Then you can pretend you're busy and keep doing that. But we were not productive. And I think to some extent, man, that was part of what I was going through in this last 6 weeks when I had that lull. And let me be real clear. I finally put some systems in place. I got a new marketing system that turns into an entire operating system for the business, right? Top to bottom. I can do invoicing and proposals and email marketing and social media content scheduling and my website and my blog and blah, 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 blah. It's all there. My calendar link, all in one system.
Boom.
It's gorgeous.
Yes.
And so I'm like, okay, well, now that I've got this, I should probably start uploading some of these 18,000, 19,000 email addresses I've collected over the years, right? I'll put them all in one place. Let me build out some offers. Let me put some products together. Let me get some payments set up. Let me connect my Stripe. Let me do all these different things. And I spent 3 months building this out. Let me find the right video, the right images, the right content, tell the story. And so I was really kind of heads down, chin up, but heads down, moving forward and building this thing out. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to make some offers. I'm going to sell some stuff. It'll be easy. Push this button.
People love me.
Terry fucking Bean right here, man. Let's go. Let's go. Yeah, man. Oh, it was a kick in the schwanz, dude. It really was, because it was like, things that I've been saying, well, if I had this, I'd get this for a long time. And I did it wrong, right? Because I'm always in a rush. I'm always in a hurry. I'm always trying to cram 6 pounds of stuff into a 2-pound bag, because that's who I am. Yep. We talked about that optimism earlier. I'm like, yeah, it's going to work out just fine. Don't worry about it.
20 minutes for a 40-minute ride. I can make it.
I got it. No problem. Can't possibly make it on time if you leave when you're supposed to be there, Terry. That's how that goes.
Math isn't mathing there.
It's it. And so it was especially depressing, because not only was it slow in terms of my business, it was slow, and I was exerting far more effort than I ever put out into generating business. Now, I know for me, I was doing it wrong, right? I'm a magnet. And so I was putting the butt end of the magnet out.
It's like pushing it away.
Trying to attract things, right?
It's a great visual.
It doesn't work. Why isn't this working? Well, you're just mooning everybody, buddy. That's why it's not working. And so it's been really interesting to go through that whole mental gymnastics, right? In that process of, everything from the elation of, yay, I got this and it's going to work, to, oh my God, how could you email that many people and have 0 takers?
Yeah.
Right? You couldn't even get a conversation started with this stuff. to, okay, you're kind of finding a rhythm here, and this stuff is going to take time, right? Like my buddy Brad, it's going to be a 2-year process. It's not going to be a 10-minute process. And I want the 10-minute process, like, because I'm human.
I was just coaching somebody last Monday, and he was like, how do I do this stuff? How do I start delegating and passing off responsibilities without going backwards? Like, you can't. It's impossible. And that's what prevents most people from doing it.
Right.
Because you do have to go backwards. It doesn't just go into place and all of a sudden people start doing the things. You've got to check on it. You've got to follow through. You've got to adjust as you go. There's a whole process to it. And to do that, and the work is probably going to get sloppier, right? Because it's not you doing it anymore. Now you got to inspect it, and there's going to be some time into that. But once you do that, once you commit to it, once you do it every day for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, all of a sudden people just fall in line and they follow the process because it's laid out.
Because it's there. And now they know how to do it as well as you did it. And guess what? You don't have to do it anymore. That's the amazing piece. But it is, you're right. It's so hard because, and I think about that from training people, we look at it and say, oh, it's going to take me so long to build this out and build it up and get them involved in it and then have them actually be productive. Just way faster for me to do it myself.
Yep.
True this time. Probably true for next time too, right? And maybe even true the third time. But beyond that, you're wrong, right? Especially if it's a repetitive task, you are wrong. So just bite the bullet and get it done, right?
Yep.
I love that.
Yeah. What system are you using?
It's called, I'm not supposed to tell people what it's called, but it's called Go High Level.
Yeah. That's what I'm using too. Yeah.
Yeah.
As soon as you started describing it, because I started using it again about 4 months ago.
Yeah.
It's like going through that process of setting everything up, but man, it does everything.
All the things. And then people that are smarter than you and I probably are marketing that as a tool, right? And giving and doing all the setup and the implementation and the integration into it. And, charging a monthly fee for doing the same thing they're doing for themselves. It's genius.
It's genius and good for them. I'm not the person that can set up automations and do that mind mapping and stuff like that. That is I will spend far too much time and stress on something like that. So it's so nice. It's awesome to have those people out there that are mastering and doing that and figuring out how to make money on it because it's needed.
Absolutely. No, it's so cool. And so I'm at the point now, it's 3 months, 4 months old, where I'm just finding out what's broken still, right? And so this lady that I met with today kept telling me that how many email reminders she gets for every appointment. I got 4 for this one. I got 3 for this one. I got 4 for this one too. I'm like, all right, well. I sent her a note to tell her that we were meeting in an hour. She's like, yeah, I heard something about that. Okay, good. I wanted to make sure you knew. Poor lady had 12 messages about this damn meeting at 9:30 this morning.
I just want to make sure you're there.
Don't miss it. It's obviously important.
But it is a learning process, like same thing I would set up and I realized there wasn't a box checked and people were telling me, oh, my appointment is not going to my calendar, so I was having people miss meetings. That never happened,
Right.
So it's like, what's going on? What's the gap? Oh, I got to fix this thing. So it's going backwards, but I'm telling you what, the things that I'm now saving time on, the invoicing, the follow-up on the invoicing, because after you send an invoice and if somebody doesn't pay it right away, like I don't have to be the one that's doing it. The automation's just taking care of it.
Does it. Yeah, it's so cool. It's so cool. Yeah, so I'm like just pleased as all get out. So
it's all about the tools and the systems, like to your point.
Well, and that's it, right? And again, I used to joke that I didn't have a business.
Yeah.
I would play business, right? And for whatever reason, this thing makes me feel like I actually, by the end of this year, I'll have a business, right? Something that scales, something that grows, something that's potentially replicatable, and equally important, something that can live on without me.
Yes.
Because today, if I walk out of here and I hop on Grand River and I don't make it off of Grand River, all right, try being, no, can't.
You can't. Yeah.
Right? It's done. There's nothing to try, man. But by the time I get everything set up and the membership groups that we didn't talk about that are in there and the courses and the material that's going into all of that stuff, it's gonna be live, right?
And that's really cool because I didn't realize it's really cool. We're kind of going through the same process there, but I didn't realize what you were using. But I have seen that you have a lot of courses and you're doing these things, and so it's a great segue to talk about what you have going on.
Oh yeah, thanks. I wasn't planning that, but yeah, it's been fun, man. I just finished last week a 10-week thought leader course. Right. So it kind of goes through the first 3 weeks are all about you and, who you are and what do you do and who do you do it for and why they care. Right. And so it's all that grounding stuff and that who you are piece. I should just market that course as a standalone because it's so detailed and so deep. And by the time people are out of it, they're like, I never really thought about any of that stuff. Yeah. Well, that's why I say the most important inspection is introspection. We really need to do a better job at dialing into who we are. So then the next set of classes is all about, some of the marketing guidelines, how to do some social media, how to grow some awareness. And then there's some tips and tricks about how to become a better public speaker, because I think that's important as a thought leader. And there's how do you build a mutual admiration society. You're going to need support to get to where you want to go to, how to do your own PR. So I'm revamping that thought leader course. I'm calling it the Prime Mover Playbook because thought leaders kind of played out. And I like Playbook because that sounds like way more fun than Blueprint.
Yep.
And Prime Mover is like the literal definition is the first thing that gets something going, right? So from an engineering standpoint, it's usually going to be like a gear that clicks in and spins the rest and powers everything to get it started. So Prime Mover Playbook's coming up. I do some coaching on how to get on TEDx stages. So I've got a group that's coming up to, I don't know if it's going to be the 3rd week of April or the 2nd week of May. It depends on how many people actually show up and want to get involved. So that's one. And then the other one that I'm really, really digging right now is this mindset stuff. I wrote that book I guess it was not quite a year ago. It's going to have a birthday this week.
That's awesome.
My goodness.
Serendipity to have you on.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
This week. Yeah, just doing the math. So yeah, I'm really excited about doing that course. And it's so funny because I took that book and it's weird, right? I'm not a guy that's going to be like, hey, you're going to have to buy this book. How many copies would you like? That's not who I am, right? You want to buy the book, it's right there. Yeah. If you don't want to buy the book, you may never hear me mention it again. But what I did that I thought was really smart of me, I pat myself on the back. Watch me. You go ahead and kick me in the nads. What I did was I made it into a presentation. Like I had the lady that did all the design work make it into an actual presentation. So now I can go and talk about all the material in the book. And if people want to buy it, great. If they don't want to buy it, doesn't matter. But I love that. It's so much more fulfilling for me, right? Because in my heart of hearts, I'm a teacher. Right. And when I joke about playing business, it's not a joke. I play business. I'm here to educate, man. I'm here to inspire. Right. And I still probably, would be the lowest paid comedian on the History Channel. Right. Where else would you pay a comedian other than the History Channel? But I'm here for my amusement wholeheartedly. That's it. But my medium is to help other people, right? To help them grow, to help them see things differently, to help them look at things differently.
Well, that's so awesome. You said that looking at it differently, because I imagine people get a whole other element out of the book and look at it differently when they're able to go through that through the course or go through the experience, and then they pick up the book and again you're going to read it differently. Your perspective is shifted
100%, right? And that's so the book was called Finding Harmony in the F's. It's not the F's, but Finding Harmony in the F's You Give. Isn't that weird, right? I totally swore like 20 minutes ago, but now I'm like censoring myself. Oh my goodness.
Is it censored in the book or is it not?
It's actually F***CKS, right?
Okay.
So it's never, there's none no swear words actually spelled all the way out.
Yeah.
And there's only about 18 of them, even though literally the title has one in it. And so, but I took the presentation and I named it Mindset Matters. How we see things. Excuse me. Yeah. How we look at things is greater than what we see. Right? So you talked about perspective, and that's exactly what it is. It's about, listen, this is what I see, but if I look at it from over here, it's going to be really different. Or if I look at it from over here, it's going to be really different. I remember talking to somebody. I was in Southfield, and African American lady was telling me about how important the Bible was, and I said, okay, sure, I agree. Let's talk about this for a minute. And I said, now I want you to tell me which book I should read. And I can't remember if she said Mark or Matthew. And I said, so help me understand. Aren't the first 5 books of the New Testament basically the same book? And she said, well, it's the same story. And I said, okay, go on. And she said, imagine looking at this tree, and you're telling that story standing right here. I'm telling that story standing over here. That person's standing over on the far other side. And so that's
different perspective.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to see things differently. You're going to understand things differently. And I said, oh, that was like one of the most succinct descriptions, and that I'm telling you a story that's 20 years old.
Yeah.
Right. And it feels like it happened yesterday. So there's some cool stuff. I haven't thought of that story in probably 18 years, man.
That's really, I love how that will come up.
Absolutely.
Something that, but that's a huge lesson. That's a good shift in itself of like thinking, isn't the same story? And then when she can say, yeah, but it's different perspectives, and all of a sudden it clicks for you.
Exactly. Yeah. And it just dials right in. Right? So yeah, that's pretty cool, man. That's pretty cool.
The mindset matters. Like, how much does that, for real, the mindset truly matters.
That's all there is. That's all there is. Listen, I could take us down a real deep path of, time is immaterial, doesn't really exist, right? I'm pretty sure we don't exist, right? There's a whole different level. I tell people all the time, I identify as stardust. And so there's a whole pile of information that we can go through. And ultimately, what really matters is, how do we perceive it, right? And what do we do with it once we have that perception? And so I'm joining, I don't know, do you know Brenda Miller? You know Brenda.
Oh, we've never met in person. We've been connected on LinkedIn. We've had conversations. We've never met in person.
Okay. So she and I are doing, I'm on her show tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. Just dumb luck how it all worked out, right? It's scheduled about the same time a couple of months ago. And, we're going to talk about mindset matters and how it applies to business, right? Because it absolutely applies to business.
Yep.
And it applies to, how do we attract people? How do we retain people? How do we have customers? How do we service them? Right? How do we market? How do we not? It's pretty wild.
So I told you a story about the guy I was coaching, and he was asking about delegation. Do we have to go backwards? And this is really, I think, ties into what you're saying. So he's having a trouble leading. But from a business development, problem-solving standpoint, he could tell me exactly what makes him a difference and why he's a great business development person and why he's built these relationships and had these successes. And he's like, I solve problems. I ask a ton of questions. I discover, I find out where the weak parts are and how I can help them and serve them, and I fulfill that. And he's like, the other thing that I do is, he was like, in these big corporations, like they have a big corporate client, and he was like, in these big corporations, a lot of businesses, their departments don't communicate very well. He was like, they're in the same hallway and none of them know what's going on in each other's departments. And he's like, what I've been able to do is see that problem, that challenge, and be able to bring the teams together and be able to communicate in harmony, and then point out to them exactly what I've done. And they're like, oh my God, that's the first time we've done that. And like, that is what you're doing. And so it's like phenomenal. But then he's having a hard time communicating with his team and leading his team. And I was like, perspective switch. You've got this down on what makes you a phenomenal business development person, what you're solving these problems, you're bringing communication together, you're helping people that are having such a hard time communicating together, and you're helping them see for the first time clearly on how they can communicate and play on the same team. What if you did that with your people? And he was like, you could see it. I was like, fuck. What if you ask them, what's going on? What's your biggest challenges? Like, what if you really cared and you understood, like, what do they want to achieve in their life? And what are their challenges to get there? And what are their challenges to do this job well? And how can you help them?
Wow. Right? I mean, and that had to be such an aha moment and simultaneously so frustrating for him. Right? Just so frustrating. But that's it.
It's common sense, but it's not.
I posted something that people would tell you was very vulnerable on Facebook the other day because I was really trying to ascertain where I'm really good, right?
Yep.
Like where I'm not like where I'm okay, but like where I'm so great that people can't wait to write me a check.
Yes.
That kind of thing. And in as much and as powerful of a coach as I am for other people, I can't coach myself out of a paper bag. Right? Doesn't work. Right. Same reason you go to a website developer, if you look and they've got a really cool website, they're not really good. If they were really good, they'd be busy building other websites.
Yep.
That's how it is.
Yep.
And so it's what happened to your buddy, right? He's this powerful business dev guy who can't develop his own business. It's annoyingly true.
I say this all the time. It's like, I can solve your sales process problem for you. For me, it takes a lot more bumps on the head because I'm in it. I'm working on it. And it's like, it's so much harder to pull yourself out of all the day to day and the emotions and to see clearly. People are our greatest resources. We've talked about social media and all these things. And I know you feel this true. It's the social currency of the people are our greatest resources. Right. And so it takes a person to really kind of ask a question to make you go, huh? Shit. Or the lady with the Bible and the whole, she was able to help you shift a perspective and look at it differently. You wouldn't have got that from a book or reading it on social media or
at all. And it's funny because as a sole practitioner, right, solopreneur, when we're doing things, we're like this, and you can't really see squat through that. You're right up against it all the time. And if you're anything like me and there's a level of creativity and a desire to fix things, you're like, oh, I could do this or this or this or this or this or this. And so now the problem's even magnified because you went from I don't know what to do to I don't know which one of these to do. Right? And it's like it gets old quick. That's why all great coaches have coaches.
And also, I would say that's why that first, who are you, is so important. Because so many people start a business and they set their goals and their mission around what other people have told them would be success.
Right. Absolutely. Right. And I love how you said that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just pausing. That was yours. Yeah.
It was. Well, and it's so funny because all the voices in our head, and some have more than others, very, very few of those voices are authentically ours. Right? They're the teacher that wanted us to be better. They're our parents. They're our friends. They're our family member. They're the aunt who said, you can't sing very well, sweetie. Just sit down, right?
Yeah.
Meant well, but didn't end well.
Remembers that their whole life, though.
100%, right? Stays with you forever. They're your coaches that were riding your jock way back in the day, right? And so what we really have to do is get really good at filtering those voices out. And we do that by listening to them, trying to understand what the lesson is, and whether or not that lesson actually applies to the life we want to live. Mm-hmm. Because ultimately, we don't really have to take anybody's advice or opinion or thought process and own it. We just need to make sure that we own ours. But most of us don't even know what ours sounds like. And that's the part that I really love dialing into people on. Like, dude, that's not you. That's your mom. I haven't even met your mom. I can tell you that's your mom. And that's a real thing.
I think that's so critical because how do you tune out that noise? Because there are so many things you can do. There's so many directions you can go. And you pile on top of all the technology and all the things. There's so many, distractions of like, if you go this way and you do marketing this way, or there's so many people that will tell you to do these different things. You will be caught in this never-ending cycle until you're out of business or till you're broke or broken, right?
Broken, yeah.
If you don't define who you are, what your core values are, what makes you happy as a person, if you're chasing $1 million, but you're just happy, serving people and, with a certain amount of lower money, why are you chasing that $1 million?
Right. Yeah. If your goals don't align to who you actually are, you're missing out on a big step. And it's so funny because we get so caught up in what everybody else is doing. Right, we're so caught up in keeping up with the whoever's, and it's like that's your life. You do you. I'm cool with that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to be a part of that. You'll love this, man. So I've changed my decision making framework over the past couple of years, and I've been really thinking through this over the last 6 or 7 months. But we know categorically that we have neurotransmitters in our head, right? We know that there is a brain in here that is partially responsible for the logic function, memory, data, storage, all these things. We know that. And the neurotransmitters are the little packets of information that go back and forth that actually carry some of these details. So, scan, heart. We know now that our hearts have neurotransmitters. They have all kinds of ability to pass information back and forth between our brain and the rest of our body. And in fact, ancient Egyptians used to think that your mind was where your heart is. So fascinating stuff. Go down south a little farther. Your gut has neurotransmitters. We are actually actively talking about the idea of your gut brain. In fact, fun fact, might have been today. Might have been yesterday, the 4-year anniversary of the very last MCC live meeting, Motor City Connect live meeting in 2020 was either March 23rd, but I think it was March 24th. I think it's exactly today. Sorry for dating yourself. And your pal, Paula Ruffin, Dr. Paula Ruffin, got on, did a virtual training, and spoke about gut brain. So just for a full circle kind of moment here.
Yeah, I got the shivers. I was like, yeah, that's awesome.
So we know that there's this gut brain, right, that we have. And so for me, I always think about it as there's a cosmic brain too, right, this collective consciousness. So I am working on, if I'm making a decision, I'm looking for alignment in all 4 of those places because I know for a fact that that is the right decision. Your brain, your mind here in your head can mess you up, right? Logic gets in the way. We know what you can do if you follow your heart. Sometimes it can be phenomenally bad or phenomenally good, right? And when we're doing our gut thing, we're making decisions fairly quickly. But if we're not really dialed in and checking in, we might miss something, right? And so aligning those 4 minds is really what it's about for me right now.
That's incredible. Where do you start with that?
Well, you start to understand how they each sound, right? Is this because there's no? It's not like we look up and it's like, oh, this is going in my head. Okay, heart, talk to me, right? So we have to understand their language. So a logic thing is going to sound like I think. A heart thing is going to sound like I feel, right? A gut thing might be I feel, or it might be more reactionary than response, right? And cosmic has this kind of like booming Buddha sounding voice to it. And so it's really kind of a chill thing. So the language it uses, how it sounds or how it feels internally, right? And ask, hey, is this my head or is this my heart? So they'll all have a little different gravity, especially if you start doing the work to say, well, how have I made decisions up until this point?
It's huge.
Right?
How many people sit and think about that? Not many.
Not enough. right? And why I do, I don't know. I wish, believe me, I wish I had spent as much time thinking about how do I go fill bank accounts for myself and the people I care about, right? But this is the stuff I get trapped in, because there's value in it.
There is.
Right? I want people to be better, man. The amount of shit that we're going through in this country right now, and knowing that it's only going to get incredibly worse over the next 8 months is staggering to me. Staggering. We focus on the wrong things consistently.
What do you think that driver is for you for wanting so passionately to help people?
I don't know. That's a really good question. So, and I love that you use the word driver, because I just started playing around with an organization called Behavioral Elements, and we map behavior drivers to the drive to acquire, the drive to bond, the drive to defend, and the drive to learn. And in this system would tell you that I am drive to learn higher by 2 points than anything else, but my next one's bond, and then acquire, and then defend is non-existent. And so, but for me, I think the drive to propel people is, I have this really, really strong belief that as humans being, we are about 12 to 15% actualized as to what we actually could be. And the challenge is it's a critical mass sort of thing, right? So until like at least, the 100th monkey thing, right? Until like the 51st monkey starts doing it this way, we're never going to get there.
Yeah.
And so I firmly believe that there's a great opportunity for growth and for human potential to be significantly different than where we are right now. Right, we're at like level 1. We're in the running around trying to figure out where the coins are in the video game. Right, we haven't even gotten to where the actual game is, and so that part, I know that internally, intuitively. And so it's, why do I want to do it? I don't know. I want to see us be better, because I believe we can.
It's, without people like you going out and having that education, it's not going to get better.
It's probably not, right? Because, listen, man, your comfort zone's your comfort zone for a reason, because it's comfy. Right? It's real nice there. It's real warm. It's real easy to access, and it's a little challenging to get out of. But it's not where growth happens, ever.
The crazy thing is it is easy, but how painful is it really? And that's the thing is like we don't necessarily correlate how easy that comfort zone is with the pain that we're reoccurring in our life by sitting in that comfort zone.
Isn't that the truth, man?
And if we did, maybe it'd give us the motivation to move.
Maybe we jump. You're right. Maybe we would jump. And so that becomes the really interesting piece. I want people to jump. I want people to take a stand for themselves and the people around them. Right. And, I'm almost disinterested, right? So what's my political affiliation? Disinterested.
Yeah.
That said, we've been hoodwinked and bamboozled for a very long time, and I'm hoping that we'll wake up and come out of that a little bit. I don't see it happening this time around. I was kind of certain it was going to, but we do. We intuitively we know some bullshit, and we start to push back on it, and then it's like, oh, that's heavy. I gotta go back here and watch TV.
Yeah, because it is heavy, and it takes for politics to be revamped. It takes a whole lot of movement.
It does.
And I get frustrated with seeing how many people that are so smart that I respect immensely that don't see the problem, you know. And I always say, like, from a business standpoint, from a people standpoint, if we're in business and I have like you're the president, I'm the vice president of the company, and I gain something by you failing, we're fucked.
That's right.
Because I'm going to constantly be telling the people, like, oh, did you hear what Terry said about you? You know, in the back end, he was saying he didn't really care about you guys. He's going to cut your pay. You know, like, you're now going and creating this seeds of division. And that's great to distract everybody.
That's exactly, oh my God, you so succinctly said what's going on, right? That's the world we live in right now. So like, don't watch us over here. Watch these things over here.
Yep.
And it's like, no, you already know you fell for that last week and the week before and the month before, and you know the bananas in your tailpipe. Put it down.
The banana in the tailpipe. Pull it out. The serial killer's in the garage. Don't run to the garage.
Right. And here we are. We just keep falling for it over and over again. And you know, there's a possibility that I'm wrong about everything, right? And I'm very open and very present to that idea. And, you know, in this scenario, maybe my belief that humans are smarter and more capable is wrong. It's entirely possible.
I just feel like when we talk on an individual basis, that like we have it figured out. And then you go out in a group and you're like, how'd we get here? How'd we get here?
Isn't it true, right? It's like, holy cow. It's so bad when that group think takes over, right? It's like, whoa, wait, how come?
When you follow individuals because they belong to your party, when you defend things that you would never defend on the other side, the things that you would say about one side, like it's insanity.
So bad. That's so bad. I have a good friend of mine who's very, very one-sided. And I said, here's the difference, man. I'm willing to say this person sucked, what this person did sucked, right? And be very open and casual about it. You couldn't do that to dear leader if you had to. And that's where we're different, man. That's where we're different. I'm eyes wide open. Yeah, there's some good things, there's some bad things, there's some shit in between. Yeah, it's we could cut all of this. We could cut all of it.
I know I don't go the politic route very often because of your point, and I think that's why I jumped on it, is because like that level of disinterest.
Yeah, it is. It's like, wait a second. They're fucking you and they're fucking you. How about that?
Yep.
It's like, why do we think anything different, man? It's beyond me. No.
So going back, I look at it from like what we're doing and the work that I think both of us are kind of doing with people is the only work we can do. I don't want to be in politics. I don't want to like do any kind of movement like that. But if we can, to me, if I can help people from that, from whatever way I touch them, not in
appropriately as possible. I was gonna let it go, man.
I saw your face.
I was gonna let it go. You can do it. You're not a 12-year-old boy. You're not. You can let this go. Wait a second.
My wife would say that I couldn't let it go either. So.
Well, and then I had to make a 12-year-old boy reference, and now I'm not even sure what to do with that. Okay.
This gets fun. How about those bears? Those aren't pillows.
That's awesome. It's funny. There's like a little bar right outside the door here with a bunch of whiskey and booze and bourbon and maybe some tequila. I wasn't sure. We had zero.
We had zero.
I just want to put that out there.
So if Rob was here, he's like, do you want some?
That's awesome, man. This is fun, dude. I'm glad that, well, frankly, I invited myself back on your show.
Oh, dude, I'm glad. Like, I was like, when we had the conversation, I'm like, yes, because again, going back to that story, that was all 5,000% true. It was like,
that's amazing.
I was literally going to call you and I'm like, no, he's on right now. We're scheduled. I didn't know you that well in the sense I'm not going to reschedule. But I'm so glad when you reached back. I was like, yes,
this is
because
cool.
To do this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so different. I was having that conversation with the lady that I was meeting earlier with all the follow-up messages. She's like, there's just something different about being able to look eye to eye with somebody.
Oh, huge.
I'm like, oh yeah. Listen, face to face beats pixel to pixel all day, every day. You know, there's just something about it.
Since joining the studio, I've done 3 episodes that have been Zoom, and I now have created a rule that no matter where you live, if you want to be on the show, you've got to be willing to do it in person.
Nice.
Because there's a different level. But the other thing is, from a content standpoint, you can't control what other people's cameras are. There was one episode, the audio kept cutting out, and so I sound great. She sounds like a pile of crap, and her video looks bad, and then I'm looking all great, and it just is uneven.
Yeah, no, it's so bad.
I want to, the whole goal of this is to create content to put a spotlight on people and be like, guests are like, how'd you get on that TV show? Like people are like, oh my God, so many people thought I was on TV, or, they get that, like, how'd you get that kind of a gig? Like I want people to have that elevated VIP experience that I was on Coffee and Grit, not, for what it used to be at the coffee table or Zoom or whatever.
How's the coffee?
The coffee is phenomenal.
I've heard good things.
Phenomenal. I should have brought some.
I heard you were out, man. I heard you were sold out. So
no, we just got a refill. So it's the most phenomenal coffee I've ever had in my life.
Really?
Yeah.
That's amazing. How do you get into making coffee? What's that?
So I don't make it. This is really cool. It's the power of relationships, right?
Yeah.
I had a guy on the podcast. Do you know Dylan England by chance?
No.
Okay. He's out in Taylor, and I was connected to him from a past client that was like, hey, this guy's doing a podcast and it's very similar to yours and you guys should connect. And so we did. And then I ran into him again, and we ended up booking and doing mutual. I did a podcast out at his place, and he came out and did one here, and we were talking about ways to monetize podcasts. And he was like, what I did was I created I have a friend that's a coffee roaster, and I created a podcast brew. And so now we have a coffee that I've been selling and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, like that's genius. I'm like, I have a podcast called Coffee and Grit, and I never thought about making a coffee. That is brilliant. And he was like, dude, take it. And I was like, yeah, probably not. We're not going to steal your idea, but that's genius. And then Grant was a studio engineer, and he was like, dude, you should call it Lion's Breath. And if he wouldn't have said that, we'd have laughed and joked about the coffee, and I would never did anything with it. But he came up with such a brilliant name that I was like, I threw it out on Facebook the next day and was like, who's ready for Lion's Breath coffee? And it just kind of exploded. And now, I don't know, you might have people like this too. There's people in my life that I've had my business for 6 years. I've had the podcast for 4 years, and there's people in my life that like I've met through my kids' sports, or people in the community that know me through other stuff that have never asked me about either of those two things. Mm-hmm. Those people are the ones who are coming out and being like, so you're in the coffee business now. How do I get some of this coffee? Hey, can I get some of this coffee, or when's this coffee coming out? And just everywhere I was going, people were asking about the coffee, and so I'm like, I got to make this thing real. And so when I was a sales director for a wireless franchise, I had a store out in Ortonville, and there was this coffee shop out in Goodrich, and they roasted their own coffee, most phenomenal coffee I'd ever had, and to the point where we would drive out to Goodrich every year and get coffee and gift it out to our friends and just stock up for ourselves. And so I called him up and was like, hey, this is what I got going on. We've kind of come up with a name already. You're the best coffee I've ever had. My favorite was this macadamia nut coffee. It was called macadamia nut. They roast it in a macadamia nut oil. And I'm like, that was my favorite. And they're like, actually, it was our most popular brand. We discontinued it because we wanted to bring out some others. And so long story short is we ended up white labeling. They brought back macadamia nut just for me. We call it Lion's Breath now. And so I just order coffee from them and then brand it in. So I do wholesale and then white label the coffee. And
you doing wholesale too?
Well, so I buy coffee wholesale.
Okay, you're not selling wholesale.
No.
I'm like, oh, you're kind of a big deal, man.
Well, so what's really cool is like people have asked me if I want to be in store. I'm not really going after that. I'm wholesale. I'm white labeling, and so there's probably not enough margin to be like I'm going to go and sell it to stores and lower my price and all that kind of stuff. That said, like I have all these relationships with collaborative workspaces. And the coffee's really, I talk about difference makers, and it's like, get a Majestic cup to go make your difference, like start out your day with a Majestic cup of coffee to be, and so the, one of the collaborative workspaces here just bought 10 bags, and so they store it. And then so people are getting the coffee there, and then they're ordering it. Like I'm just getting these new orders in. It's been really cool. I've sponsored a couple of chamber events, and I've had coffee that I've served, and so I've gotten orders that way, or a couple of different opportunities to be in different locations and stuff where they serve the coffee to their clients.
That's awesome.
It's cool how it's unfolded.
That's amazing.
It's been really fun.
Good for you, dude.
Thanks.
Lion's breath.
Lion's breath.
I love the logo, man. That is straight fire.
Thank you.
That is straight fire.
It's 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 the logo. That's a fun story all in itself. But
You have a tattoo with it, don't you?
I have a tattoo of a lion.
Okay.
Which was that was before I had the company, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that ties into how you flipped the podcast on me. There's a whole thing with when I was trying to name my company, it was like, what if, I don't want to be Tracy Consulting, or you have a great tri-bean. That's awesome. But I was trying to think of different things, and the lion kept coming up for so many different reasons. One, the whole face-eating lion story that I've told. Well, I'm not going to go into it, but there's like that. And then I've always had a loud voice. You talked about, being blessed with not having needed a mic most of the time. And as a kid, the teachers were always like, talking your 2-foot voice. And it was like, I'm like Samuel L. Jackson, like, I can't, this is just the way that I talk. Like people have always told me to be quiet and that kind of thing. And so it's like the lion's roar.
Yeah. Nice. Now it makes me want to talk louder. No, that's badass, dude. That's badass.
Yeah. Yeah. Just how things all unfold.
That's so cool. So it's just macadamia nut.
Macadamia nut.
People. Now you know.
Dude, it's got this most amazing smell to it.
I'm not a coffee guy, but
okay.
I'm even intrigued by you've done such a great job. I was like, I'm probably drinking some coffee today. My last name is Bean. You think I'd be all about coffee? It feels like what's the word I'm looking for? When an abomination. Right? Like if I were sitting here as a bean drinking coffee, it feels like an abomination. I don't know. No?
Cannibalistic, for sure.
It's a stretch. Guy's killing green beans like it's his job over here. So that's fun.
Yeah. It's interesting how things unfold and stuff, and the coffee is just crazy.
I love it. That's a good story, dude. That's a good story. All right, I'm gonna go see my buddy and see what he's up to, because he's here. I can sense it.
Nice. Who's your buddy?
His wife owns Youthology.
Oh, yeah. Right next door here.
Neighbor,
Yeah.
You'll drive by. I'm going to go check out their new spot because they just moved or are
the
process of moving.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's done yet.
It's been probably just a couple months.
Yeah.
It's a cool spot too.
Is it?
Yeah. It's just a really cool looking building.
Is it? Yeah. He was my college roommate, and I knew her before I knew him. And they've been married for, 27 years or something.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I love how small the world is.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. So anytime I'm out here, I'm like, I'm coming to hang out with you, whether you like it or not, buddy.
It just so happens to be a couple doors down. That's so cool.
It is. So yeah, in fact, when we originally scheduled this, I texted him that day, and he's like, I'm going to be in Cabo. I'm like, we're talking another month. You're not going to be in Cabo 2 months in a row. Settle down, wise guy. So no, it's cool. How will you spend the rest of the day?
I'm going home. I got a bunch of catch up work to do, some content stuff and everything. So
nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Actually, building out the rest of my website. So from Go High Level, right?
Yeah.
So I have a website that I'm paying for, and the fee is up to pay for it and renew it. And I'm like, why am I doing that when I can just build this website out that I'm already paying for,
Just build it. Yeah. Right. And that's it. What I love about it is like, it can be good enough, like basically right now.
Yes.
Right.
Right. Yes.
And then you can make it better and continually improve it, but it can be good enough right now.
And I think it will actually end up being better than my my website is just a website. It's not really functional in the sense that it's ever driven me business.
Yeah.
It's just something like proof of
It's
I
proof,
exist, right?
It's validation.
But to your point, let's use our tools and set up systems in order to drive business and have more of a purpose of, hey, it's just like a birth certificate, right? Like it's something that's actually going to drive business and be a tool.
I love that. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. That's sweet, man. Well, good luck.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get it done.
Thanks for coming out and having a conversation. It's been phenomenal.
I'm so glad I did, dude. And again, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I love the fact that we did it again. Johnny's like, what are you guys going to talk about? I don't think either one of us have anything. I know it'll be good, though.
I always have that's the thing is like, it's I don't always know. And I never have planned questions. And it's just one of those things of like going in and this ended up awesome.
Just organic as
just
all
organic. Because the first, and for those that have made it to this point and have not got the gist, like if you want to hear more about Terry's story and background and how he has really gotten to where he's at, like we did a whole 2-hour episode, that's I want to say episode like it's in the 50s.
Okay.
So this was it would have been released in May of 2022.
That sounds right.
So go back, check out that episode, a great episode, and then you learn more about him here. So
even better. I like that.
Yeah.
This was more pragmatic in what we can do as opposed to what someone may have done. Who cares?
It's real life, and a lot. We've been talking about a lot of this stuff anyway, so I think you'll really resonate with this. But we're a collection of the stories that we're told and the stories that we tell ourselves.
That's it. 100%.
The stories, the voice in their head that's telling us that story of you can't do this or you can't do that or you can, either way, right?
Or you can, right? Or you say you can't, and you're like, prove it. I'm gonna go out and make you wrong. Right?
So the whole point of Coffee and Grit is providing people with stories that help them shift and see things are possible versus hearing from their friends, family members. You think about being an entrepreneur and starting out. How many allies do you actually have? And it's not that those people don't care about you. Like your friends and your family, your mom, she wants the most for you. Like I had a client one time that actually I got from this because he was on the podcast, and then he ended up becoming a client, and he ended up becoming a client because he was in this situation where his wife was like, where's the man that I married? Like, don't you just want a job that you can be safe and we can take care of our kids and we don't have to worry about it? Instead, you're doing this crazy thing that makes me nervous and gives me a lot of anxiety. And it's hard enough to be successful and overcome our own self-doubt when everybody's chirping in our ear and setting us up for failure or telling us we're going to fail and what are we going to do when we fail? Like, how do we overcome that? How do we get ourselves out of that? Not a lot of us are surrounded around people that are doing the thing, doing the entrepreneurship thing. And, people that listen have heard me say this over and over again, but I was just going out and having conversations because I wanted to learn and grow. I was inviting conversations with other entrepreneurs I seen doing awesome things or coaches and consultants because I wanted to know, how did you get into it? What have you learned? What would you do differently? All these things. And I'm hearing incredible stories from people that made me a better person, help me become a better business owner. But then it was impacting my personal relationships, my relationship with my wife. I was becoming a better husband, better father, just from listening and hearing people's stories, right? And knowing what's possible. So it's like, why not give people a resource to be able to help shift their stories and see what's possible? Because if Terry can do it, why can't you?
I love that, man. And I think that's so important because success leaves clues. We know
Absolutely.
that, right? And if you got people that are willing to open up and share stuff that actually really matters and is poignant, you don't have to do a damn thing other than just pay attention and say, okay, I don't want that, so I'm not doing what they did. And I do want that, so I'm going to go model what they did. It's a really good way to grow, man.
It really is.
It really is.
And take that data because, like, hey, you might not be like Terry. You may not be like me. You may not be like another guest, but take that message, take that learning lesson, almost even like what you said at the very beginning, where it's like taking the criticism and kind of dissecting it and like, what can I take from this? And what do I want to leave from this?
That's right.
Because there's truth to the matter and somebody's perspective. Like if you've ever had a boss that's coming down on you for something and they're repeating the same thing over and over again, what is that message? Can you take something from it? Or is it someone that they just want you to become that doesn't fit in your core values?
Right. Or are they just projecting all the BS that they're full of, right?
Right.
And so we have to discern and we have to learn discernment, but we also have to examine before we can get to discernment.
If you're hearing from multiple people, same feedback, you probably want to look deeper. Nah, it's probably more about you now sitting in your comfort zone and not wanting to give up bad habits, as opposed to it's more you than other people.
I don't want to say this, but it's not me, it's you.
So that's little tips at the end. But man,
Nice.
Thanks again for coming out.
Oh, pleasure, man. I'm glad I made it. Thank you for having me, and keep up the excellent work, dude.
Thank you, brother.
Keep up the excellent work. You make it so easy.